Hello, Dr. Kanika. Thanks for joining Eye on the Biz. Today we are at the workshop organized by Thailand Development Research Institute, or TDRI, which is talk about green economy. So could you first tell us what is green economy?
Actually, green economy is like we are trying to search for a new development model to trying to promote economic growth, or in other words, like trying to increase the GDP of Thailand, right? As well as trying to close the gap between the rich and the poor, taking care of the minimizing the impact of our economic activities on environment, as well as trying to reduce the use of natural resources, right? So all together, these are known as like the four pillars of trying to promote green economy. So in other words, like as the individual like Thai citizens, right? Like we normally know the issues of green economy as like we're trying to green the different sectors of Thai economy, such as like the manufacturing sector, agricultural sector, tourism, energy, transport, as well as other sector, right? So when you talk about green economy, it means that you're trying to tap into these different sectors and trying to change or trying to reform like the process from the way you use the resource to transform into producing into goods and services and supply these goods and services to the end users, right? So greening the whole economy means you have to tie all these different sectors together, trying to change the whole process from upstream to downstream.
And so you are saying that every sector of the economy can be made green. Are you saying that?
The main sectors of the economy could be green, and at the moment we already experience like different sectors in Thailand already started to be green. For example, like in the manufacturing sectors, they already start trying to minimize the release of like all the wastewater or other form of waste, or trying to recycle those waste back into the production process, right? So that is one sector. The other sector, like in the agricultural sector, we are already talking about organic agricultural products. We are also talking about trying to promote the soil conservation campaign, or even in the service sectors, like in the banking sector, we are talking about e-banking. We are talking about trying to minimize the use of electricity and all other sort of form of energy in everyday use. So in general, I would say that in different sectors, there's some space or there's some gap in which greening can take place.
So why do we need to talk about green business now?
There are two types of pressure that are following us right now. Like one pressure is what we call the external pressure. So from the point of view of like this different enterprise, we already know that the Western countries, or especially there's already exists some demand that people need to be producing or like supplying the goods or services up to the certain standard. Especially, for example, in the West, they already impose like a high like environmental standard. Probably we already heard about like the ISO standard, right? So in order for us to be able to sell our products to overseas, right? If you cannot comply with this type of standard, then it would be very difficult for us to have any market at all. The other side is what I call the internal pressure, right? So we already know that the Thai consumer itself, like we already start being more aware of the type of food we eat, or the other type of services that we already consume in everydays, right? So if the consumer already start reacting to what the company is actually generating to the external environment, then as the company itself, we have to come and reconsider and rethink whether or not like the current practice that we are doing right now already be able to cope with these two type of pressures.
Okay, great. And earlier you have mentioned these four pillars, and I would like you to elaborate more on each of the pillars, which I think are the key factor in doing green economy.
Yep.
Can you tell us more about the four pillars?
So let me talk about the first pillar first. Like the first pillar is like talking about increasing the GDP or trying to stimulate the economic activities that are going on, right? So as we know that in Thailand right now, people have been calling Thailand right now being trapped in what we call the middle income trap. So we have been, our economic activities or our economy has been growing to a certain level where we don't know how to grow more, right, to get out of this trap. So on the first priority, we want to search for a new development model to trying to stimulate the GDP to experience like a high GDP growth with 8 or 9%, like what we used to enjoy in the 1990s, right? So the first priority is to trying to promote economic activities in Thailand. The second pillar is that we're trying to make sure that when we grow or when we prosper, right, we don't leave some group of our Thai population behind. So when we grow, we need to try to minimize the gap or closing the gap between the rich and the low income household, trying to make sure that everyone is on board. Everyone can enjoy the positive consequence of economic growth. The third pillar, we're talking about when we grow, we enjoy the benefit from high production and high, like, enjoying all these different type of services that we currently have. We have to make sure that we also take into account the impact of our activities on the environment, right? We are not trying to exploit or make the maximum usage of the natural resources in our generation without thinking what's going to happen next in the next generation, right? So in the third pillar, we put emphasis on trying to minimize the impact of our economic activities on the environment, as well as trying to make the most efficient use of the natural resources. The last pillar, which the 11 national economic and social development plan are also stressing a lot, is trying to make sure that we support the sustainable production and consumption, right? So we want to make sure that people or individual people in Thai society, we know our role as the consumer, right? What sort of behavioral change that we can do to make sure that all this sustainable development can be achieved? What sort of as a business, what sort of practices that the business can contribute in order to make sure that sustainable development can be sustained?
I'm just curious about the first pillar of driving the growth, the economic growth of driving the GDP. Has it been proven in the West that doing green business can drive the GDP, can make it grow further?
I would say that this is still in the learning curve, that different countries even in the West, we have been talking a lot about the word green growth. We are saying that we cannot grow in such a way that, on the other hand, we are leaving lots of environmental impact or environmental burdens on some sectors of our economy, right? So on one hand, the West, they already start reconsidering that if they continue to use the old development model that they used to use before, this one cannot be sustained. We can achieve a high growth in this generation, but we cannot make sure that this high growth or high GDP growth can be sustained into the long term, right? So I cannot say that any country already proved that green growth would become a successful business model. But there are already different lessons learned that we have seen, that we have to seriously think about growing without considering about environment. Is that a right pathway for Thailand to follow, or should we start at this stage and trying to see that, given that we already want to search for a new growth engine to escape from the middle income trap, is green growth one of the solutions that we should be put in our agenda?
I would believe that these green economy things, to make it happen, the government will have a very significant role in making the economy green. So what is the role of the government in all this business?
Yeah, in the first place, the government should make sure that in order for this green business to survive, they need to provide the basic sort of environment. For example, like the basic infrastructure, like this different roads and other sort of thing that facilitate this green business to survive. The second one is like making sure that the rule of law can be enforced, right? Making sure that if there's like new green product that are being in the market, they are fully protected in terms of like patents or other sort of thing, right? And last but not least, for the different like this businessmen, right? What they want to see is like when they start new business, they want like all this bureaucrat or different public sector to facilitate this business to be able to survive. So we need to make sure we're cutting back all the red tape, the corruption, and other things that are under the control of like or responsibility of the government, right? So second of all, like what the government can do is they can use the different type of economic instrument to give incentive to people who want to start a green business, right? For example, if you're talking about the business in the renewable energy, the government already trying to give some small incentive by supporting the R&D, right? Like what we call the feed-in tariff program or the other cost program. So making sure that at the beginning, when the technology is still very expensive, the entrepreneur can be able to survive at the initial stage. And as like the times go along and technology becomes cheaper, then the government can gradually phasing out the subsidy, right? On the other hand, like what the government can do is they can also try to reduce or waiving like some type of import duties, or they can cap at some income tax or corporate income tax at a lower level in order to make sure that the cost for the new business, especially in the green territory, can be cheaper and the entrepreneur can survive in the initial stage.
So in this break, Dr. Kanika has told us what is the green business and how the government should do or could do to promote green business. In the next break, she will discuss with us the role of the private sector and the consumer in general. So what we can do to contribute to the green business of Thailand. So please stay tuned with us.